So this whole mess with Democrats lying, all right? I mean, I feel like Gavin Newsom's lying all the time. I don't trust any of these people anymore because I keep finding that they are lying nonstop. And case in point is this article from the Huffington Post. All right, now the Huff Post, my gosh, is like, I don't even, fair warning, I'm about to show one of their articles. it is, oh, it's bad. It's cringy. All right, but this is about the KKA lies in the Texas bill, and I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to debunk it. All right, I was gathering different things, but I found a wonderful article that really just lays it down. All right, so first I'm going to show you this. This is the original article that people were sharing everywhere on Twitter. This happened, I don't know, Wednesday or something, maybe Tuesday, and it was just fire. Everyone, all the liberals were like, this is crazy. See, they're trying to get rid of critical race theory and this. And it's like, no, that is not the case at all. But let me just show you. Look at this. Texas Senate bill drops teaching requirement that Ku Klux Klan is morally wrong. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. So, I mean, I don't even want to read this article. It's so bad. It's just a smear campaign. And once you find out what it really is, it's BS. All right. For the record, technically, they did remove a provision that forced schools to teach it. Okay? But the bill doesn't say that they can't teach it. It's not saying that they're not allowed to teach it. Because guess what? It's not up to the government to say what the curriculum is. That goes to the teachers and the schools, and it's a different environment. All right, the government can't mandate what they teach. All right, it's a little we'll get into it because you know what? Let me just drop this. So I found this fact check. No, Texas lawmakers aren't stripping MLK, KKK from state education requirements. Yes, they also got rid of a provision that said that they have to teach about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, which I think is really rich because Martin Luther King's speech, these Democrats are complaining about when they're out there trying to teach people to treat people differently based on the color of their skin. That's like the opposite of what Martin Luther King was trying to teach. All right, they have a lot of gall even having his name in their mouth because they're literally spitting on his grave with critical race theory. It's ridiculous. All right, so check this out. This is from Guy Benson, and thank you, Guy. I appreciate this. It sums it up really well. And so, hoping to land a potent counterblow against Republicans in the critical race theory culture war they initiated, leftists are aggressively misrepresenting an action by state lawmakers in Texas, the ones who are in Austin doing their jobs and not engaged in a brave super spreader field trip to DC, that is. This story, written up by various outlets, have been shared far and wide by blue checkmarks, activists, and journalists. At face value, this seems pretty bad. And it does, if you don't understand the full dynamic of it. Because the Democrats made it. They you'll see. Check it out. So here's some of the crazy posts that were going around. Or maybe this is the ones that are defunded. This is not what it's about, not critical race theory, but banning the truth. Texas Republican dominated state Senate has passed a bill to eliminate a requirement that public schools teach that the Ku Klux Klan was morally wrong. For the record, they absolutely were. And no one's trying to prevent anyone from teaching this. Gosh, these people, Kyle Griffin, the Texas Senate passed legislation that would end requirements that public school include writings on women's suffrage and civil rights movement in social studies class. Among figures dropped, Susan B. Anthony, Martin Luther King Jr. Okay. So he breaks it down. So this is what they're referring to in a new political law. This is basically summing up what their talking points are. The Republican-dominated state Senate has passed a bill to eliminate a requirement that public schools teach that the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacist campaign of terror are morally wrong. The cut is some of 24 curriculum requirements dropped from a new measure, along with studying Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, the works of United Farm Workers leader Cesar Chavez, Susan B. Anthony's writings about the women's suffragist movement, and Native American history. Okay, so now he gets into it, the meat of what it really is, okay? Minor issue, it's not true. This story, widely amplified on Twitter, saying that Texas is eliminating a requirement to teach about the KKK, is completely dishonest, explained Rich Lowry. What happened is that Democrats added a bunch of concepts and documents that school kids should know in the anti-critical race bill, that critical race theory bill that passed the House a few weeks ago. The list was incredibly detailed and extensive, when it's the role of the State Board of Education, not the legislator, to get into the weeds of the specifics of the curriculum. That's what I mentioned earlier. Besides, many of the items are already covered in current curriculum. It was widely expected that the Senate would pare down the House bill, and that's what it did, including cutting a provision citing the KKK. This is the key point here. A lot of this stuff is already covered. Okay? They didn't get rid of it because it's not them who get to say the specifics of the curriculum anyway. The Democrats added all this fluff. You know, when they talk about pork in a bill, they're like, oh yeah, they added all this pork into the bill. Yeah, it's all that extra stuff. The Democrats did it on purpose, knowing that they were going to pare it back down so that they can use this as ammunition for the public to rile up a bunch of emotional people that wanted to get emotionally angry for whatever they're told to be angry about. And that's what happened. Richard Lowry is here complaining. This emphatically does not mean that Texas is banning teaching about the KKK. Anyone saying otherwise is misinformed or lying. The bill does not subtract anything from current curriculum and says so explicitly. Nothing in this section may be construed as limiting the teaching of or instruction in the essential knowledge and skills adopted under this subchapter. It's even written in the bill. They're not saying that it can't be taught. We're just not going to mandate any of these things because it's not our jobs. And it isn't. It isn't the government's job to tell people what they're supposed to teach. How is that so complicated? But they ran with it and just ran with it. He added some more context here. To explain, in June, Texas Republicans passed an anti-critical race theory bill, HB 3979. That is set to become law in September. That law, which critics on the left falsely suggested was whitewashing history, including a ton of specific examples that were listed as essential parts in the curriculum. After passage, some Texas education officials and Republicans pointed out those specific examples had a ton of overlap with the already existing standards, and that all of those things are mandatory instead of optional/suggested. So they were adding these things to the bill that were already part of the curriculum. So it didn't even need to be in this bill. More fluff, more ammunition that they used to try and correct what they viewed as an error in the original bill. Texas Senate Republicans proposed a new bill, SB 3, taking out many of the specific examples, especially those already covered. It does not ban or discourage teaching any of those terms. It doesn't do any of that. And that's what they were trying to claim. So now the same people/publications that vigorously attacked and opposed the original bill that put in those examples are amazingly claiming that removing them is indefensible in an attempt to whitewash those topics from history, hoping no one notices. This is classic Democrat BS, all right? They are gaslighting all these vote blue no matter who. They piss me off, the people in Texas or in California, that 42% still somehow think Gavin Newsom's doing a good job. That means they're clueless and they believe the lies. Okay? That's what's going on here. They're trying to turn Texas blue. They need to rile up everyone and get people talking about the lies. And guess what? These people, their worldviews are so set, okay? They read this freaking article from the Huffington Post. Texas Senate drops bill drops teaching requirement that Ku Klux Klan is morally wrong. That is it. It reaffirms their whole worldview, and they're going, ha, we got them. I don't need to hear anything. You can't disprove me because I'm right. And they have that attitude. You can't even talk to them. You can't even prove to them, which I just did, because it was adding things that didn't need to be there, doing things that they shouldn't be doing as the government anyway. I don't want the government teaching my children. I'm going to be having kids soon. I can't wait to be a father. I'll be damned if I have the government tell me what I can teach my children. That's not happening. The law is eliminating duplicative requirements from a bill left to suppose in the first place. Lowry cites example after example of the Texas state curriculum already requiring teaching about supposedly eliminated subjects. From the KKK to MLK to women's suffrages to Cesar Chavez to Native American contributions, all of which were wrongly mentioned as getting axed in the Huffington Post article quoted or that I just showed you. It's entirely fair to debate anti-critical race theory bills as they arise in legislation across the country, and overreach should be called out. But lying about what is actually being proposed discredits anti-critical race theory progressives, who also gaslight parents and citizens about critical race theory in general. Yeah, there it is. It has nothing to do with what they're teaching in schools because they're already teaching them. They didn't need to put it in the bill anyway because there's already requirements for these things to be taught. So it's a big nothing burger that they're shoving down the throats of the people that listen to them blindly, the sheeple. Yeah, and it is a shame. Okay, so now you're armed with a little bit of knowledge of knowing this BS. So when people start sharing it, because it's still making its rounds, people are still upset about this. And they have no idea what they're talking about because they've been lied to and believe the lies.